everybody. Welcome back. Um, if you are new, this is what we're doing. This is the interview with producer Greg Kyronix Havlusch. Welcome, Greg. If you are new to
Thank
the
you.
if you are new to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, follow button, all that great things. If you like what you see, hit that like button because it really helps us in the algorithm going right up to the top there. Sign up to all of our social media platforms so you can see everything that's going on. Don't forget to check out the forum so that you can chat with other players and, maybe get some answers, answer some questions, do all that great stuff so you don't miss out on all that stuff. Finally, don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. It's how you're going to stay in the know about UO. All right, we have Greg here. Like I said, I am Fenico, the community manager here at Ultima Online for Broadsword. And we're going to be answering some questions today from you guys. And we're also going to be, I've got some prepared questions as well that we're going to go over. So, Greg, if you are ready, shall we get started?
I am ready. Let's do it.
Wonderful. All right, let's start with some simple questions. Um, can you tell us about your role as a producer for Ultima Online and what your day to day responsibilities look like?
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a really good question. You know, I remember, gosh, at this point, several years ago, one of the former producers for UO, I was talking to him, and he described it to me like this. He's like, it's it's the glue that goes into the cracks whenever something needs to be picked up. And I think if you ask Bonnie, who obviously was a producer for a very long time, the same question, I think she'd probably agree that it's a constantly changing set of responsibilities in terms of what you have to focus on, right? I look at it from the perspective of we have an incredibly talented team behind us at UO for Broadsword, designers, engineers, artists, our community manager, to quality assurance, customer service, our EMs. Like the team is not just one person. So it's an immense effort to keep this train moving. And what I look at it from my perspective and what my responsibility is to make sure that all of those people are able to do the amazing things that they do on a daily basis without any types of roadblocks or anything that is going to hold them back, and to support them in any way I can. Uh, Part of that too is to keep an eye on the bigger picture to make sure that we're moving towards what our goals are and defining what those goals are, figuring out what it is that our audience is looking for, how we keep those players that we have happy and keep them playing, give them exciting new content to experience, and also how to recapture some of the vast audience that has played this game over the nearly 3 decades that it's in production. I've only had this role for a short while now, but like I said, I've had the opportunity to learn from some of the best and take that tutelage seriously. So it's constantly a new adventure every day.
Wonderful. Okay. What initially drew you to work on UO, and how has your perspective on the game evolved since then?
Oh wow! So it all goes back to when I was in middle school. My friend, and I've told this story before, so some folks may have heard it, but my one of my friends in phys ed class was like, "Hey, there's this game. It's amazing. You can do anything. You can have a pet dragon." And I thought that was the absolute coolest thing that I've ever heard. Now you have to also like set the scene here because this is like 1995, 1996. Um, well, no, it would have been after that. What am I saying? So this was probably 90. Yeah, UO launched in 97. Um, so I was like probably 12 or 13 years old, and the state of computer games at the time was like, gosh, what was I playing? There was a game, I think it was called Creatures, where you like basically had a really amped up Tamagotchi, but it was all graphical, and you got to like hatch these little creatures out of eggs, and like that was what I was playing. You know what I mean? When I was a kid, SimCity 2000. tons of Nintendos, tons of Sega Genesis. But all those games were very linear and they were very closed worlds. So to have this opportunity where you could like literally do anything and play anything to me was really exciting. So I got my grandma actually to take me to the local computer store and I found the second age on the shelf. So this would probably been like 99. And I asked the guy at the counter if the second age came with the first age because I had no idea. And then was the battle of, well, how do I convince my parents to let me use a credit card on the internet to pay for this? Because, you have to remember that, like, the internet was this big, scary place where people were going to steal your identity and do nefarious things with your money. So, I think maybe there was a money order involved with game time codes. It was a challenge, but somehow I finally managed to get an actual account, and my friends and I played every day after school and all day on weekends, much to the chagrin of my parents because I was on that damn computer all the time, and I was hooked. It was to this day one of the most defining social experiences of my life from age, however old I was, all the way like through high school. I took a break later on in high school and then got back into it in college when my college roommates would say, "Are you playing that dumb fishing game again?" But anyway, so and then I kind of went on with life, and fast forward to 2009, it would have been late 2008, 2009. There was an open call for applications from the EM program, and I ended up writing a story about a thief that breaks into a wizard's tower and steals a gem. And next thing I know, I get hired as an EM, and I met Bonnie, and she gave me an amazing opportunity to join the dev team, but I had to learn how to code first. So I did that. And then kind of the rest is history. And that was to many years ago at this point, more than I like to count. And so, to be able to fulfill that and have the opportunity to do this on a daily basis, and now the responsibility and the ability to lead the team is something that I take super seriously. I'm super blessed to be able to do this on a daily basis. I tell people what I do, and they're kind of like, "You what?" Um, and so every now and again, I'll have a chat with somebody on the team, like, if I want to get away from my desk and get out in public, it helps to kind of get the creative juices flowing. You start talking about like dragons and elves, and while you're sitting in like a park or taking a walk, and people give you these looks, and but yeah, it's really remarkable that we get to do this every day, and um, it's kind of living out the dream, and never intended. There's a Douglas Adams quote that I really like. I never intended to where I'm going, but I ended up where I ought to be, or something along those lines. So, been very fortunate.
We're really fortunate to have you, Greg. We really are. Um, all right. Here's another one. Ultima Online has been one of the longest running MMORPG legacies. What do you think has been the key to its longevity?
Yeah, I answered this question in another. I think when I was chatting with DM Wyvern the other night. But it's the people, it's the players, right? The sandbox allows you to essentially, play the game how you want to play the game within reason, of course. There are some rules, but giving players the ability to build those communities and giving players the opportunity to live a virtual life is something that hadn't been done before, um, at the scale that UO had done. And I think if you look in media as a whole, you can see there's always been this semi fascination, semi obsession with this idea of being able to live an alternate reality, an alternate persona that is not limited by the confines of reality. And UO was really the first thing that allowed us to do that in a big way, at least for me. And I think that's what has allowed it to persevere all these years, because it's not just, uh, you know, play through this thing and then be done with it. It's people play with their families, they make new friends, they get married. We celebrate life and we mourn death. Like, it's just such an enduring environment and enduring community that I think that no matter which way you slice it, it's because of the people.
I would agree. I would agree. We had somebody called Ronan Law actually said that they played from launch to 99. And then they said they almost dropped out of high school because of UO. Their mom locked them out of the computer, but dad gave him the password.
That's yeah. I mean, there was probably a lot of that. I mean, I can remember, not to get too far, but there were some pretty tumultuous conversations with my parents at the time about how much I was playing UO. Like, you know, yeah.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I can definitely relate.
Okay, let's talk about some development and design things that we have. How do you maintain the balance, maintaining, or how do you balance maintaining the classic UO experience while introducing some of these new modern features?
Wow, that's a really good question. Part of this I'm going to rely on because I've worked as a designer on UO for the vast majority of my time on it. So, and now Nick Parallax has taken up that torch and he's exceptional. But
Oh.
you kind of have to rely on what has worked. We try to be as experimental as we can. I think from a designer perspective and a designer philosophy perspective, a lot of what you create as a designer is based on your own personality. When I was finishing my undergraduate degree, I had the opportunity at George Mason to talk to a lot of undergraduate game dev students, and they would ask similar questions. And what I always told them was, you have to go out and you have to experience life beyond the virtual walls of a video game, right? It's not just enough that you play games, but you have to go out and experience the world because that's what becomes part of your your creativity.
Mhm.
So I spend a inordinate amount of time underwater. So as anybody who's played UO over the past decade has realized, there's a ton of underwater content because that's just my personality coming into the fold. If you look at some of the more recent stuff, Parallax Nick has. I've said that I'm just going to use everybody's real name because I called Serena Fenica anyway. But Nick, one of his first events when he joined the team had to do with birds, and he's got a pet bird. So our personalities come through to it. So I think to go back to the question of like how do you balance it all? Like, yeah, you can do new mechanics, you can do novel implementations, which we strive to do and gets increasingly difficult the longer the game goes on. But I don't care what mechanics you do. I don't care what implementation of a particular system you make. But if the root of that creativity isn't based in your own personality, I don't think that it becomes that interesting. And I think you find the Wyvern docs the
I
Wyvern.
saw that too.
Somebody did try to. Somebody posted a picture of my house once.
Oh my goodness.
Very odd. And then one time somebody posted a picture of my. I used to have a Nissan Xterra, and the license plate was Corpor. So they snapped a shot of that when I was driving up 95, which I thought was funny. But anyway, but yeah. So you got to put your personality into it, and I think that's ultimately what leads to some success.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's see. Can you share any insights into how player feedback has influenced recent updates or content additions?
That's a good question. I mean, we take Nick and I uh, talked about this when we did our last stream. We constantly read feedback and we digest that feedback and we talk about it. There is no one person, like I said, that makes this game successful or this product successful. It's a team effort, and there's not really anything that goes on that we don't discuss as a whole. So if you look at like the launch of New Legacy, for example, we took a tremendous amount of player feedback and completely implemented a new path to gain skill based on player feedback. So we try to be as scrappy and agile as we can with player feedback so that we can respond to it quickly. Um, we have both the blessings and curses of having a code base that's as old and as disjointed as ours is, where there's very few things that we have to create from scratch. But also, too, a lot of times it's better to create it from scratch. So it does afford us the ability to be a little bit quicker with how we can implement things. So it works out well for us. Some other stuff, like all the feedback that we get when we put stuff on Test Center, we change that as much as we can within reason. There's always somebody who wants something that's more powerful. I love reading the back and forth about when we release new items, and I'm putting the blame fairly on Nick for any of the reward properties because that's his corner of the store because he's the resident expert these days. But whenever there's a form battle between like, oh, this thing's awesome and it's just right versus no, this thing's too overpowered versus this thing's underpowered. Like if there's a lot of that chatter going on, usually we're like, all right, I think we're in the ballpark. But yeah, so it's all part of
Okay. All right. So now we know who to blame, right?
it. Yeah.
No, we love everybody on the team. Everybody's amazing. Everybody does such an amazing job, and I've said it a million times. UO is the hardest working team, and the community is the greatest gaming community we have out there. So, I want to thank everybody here for watching today because this is great. It's nice to see so many people chatting too. We are reading your comments on the way. We are. So, um, what's one of the most memorable interactions or stories you've seen from the UO community?
Let me think. The community. All right, without okay. I got to be careful not to dox myself on my play account. All right, so back in the day, there was a particular shard with a particular player, and that particular player put together an event, like a quest line in the game using tools that were available to the player base. There was nothing special about what they had versus what anybody else could have, right? So there was a particular theming to this event, which I won't get into, that really appealed to me. And I remember playing through it, and I was absolutely blown away by how well it was done. The novel use of all of these items was really, really cool. And that was as a player, this is years before I even became an EM or anything like that. It completely blew my mind. Something more recent, I think that some of the most interesting stuff I saw was probably when I was an EM on Chesapeake. Some of the stuff that folks did when we were dealing with like townships, we were trying to give some recognition to player communities that had aggregated a number of buildings and made little player towns and things like that. I mean, the decorations are next level on some of these, and the creativity that folks have with being able to completely use elements that are in the game in such a way that we never ever intended to. Like I remember seeing on, I think it was Atlantic, somebody built the surface of the moon out of goza mats and cloth and made little spacemen. Like when I see stuff like that, I'm just absolutely floored. There are people who are UO decorators that are far more talented and skilled than I ever could be, and I give those folks a lot of kudos because it's really spectacular.
Oh, absolutely. I would say I definitely, I've said it before, I've gone through the shards and sometimes I have a blast just looking at all of your amazing designs and stuff for your houses. You guys are so imaginative and I think it's great that we have a game that can really let you explore that imagination. So, keep it up guys. I love looking at this stuff. Okay. Let's see another question we can ask you. Um, so, do you have any advice for new players just starting their UO journey?
Yeah, I think the most important thing for anybody who wants to get into UO is to get connected with the community. I am a firm believer that, as I've said, the community is the backbone of the game, and we have a number of tools that allow players to form those communities. And if you guys want more tools or there's other stuff that we could do, by all means, let us know. But I think that guilds give us the most amazing back end for allowing players to manage their own player communities. I'll take one guild, for example, the Syndicate. We've known those folks for a very long time. They've got a Guinness World Record for being the oldest active MMORPG guild, I think gaming guild in general. And what they do both in the game and out of the game is incredible. I've gotten to know some of those folks over the years, and they're some of the nicest, most uh, salt of the earth people, and they just share this very same passion. So for new players, definitely gonna get connected with guilds. Another guild which always brings a big smile to my face is the UOCOF club over there, because they do such an amazing job of cataloging all of the wonderful things that the devs put out, and we really appreciate that because it's sometimes a great reference when I have to go back and think like, what did we do 8 years ago? And they do a really nice job of it. So getting connected with these communities, and those are just a small example of the different guilds that we have across the game. So get connected with a guild. Um, Beyond that, there's a ton of resources out there, and even if you can't get connected with a larger guild, I don't know a single shard where if you ask for help or say, hey, I'm a complete noob, can somebody help you out? Somebody won't swoop in and hook you up. We have some very UO wealthy players. So, I always joke that I've pretty much been UO poor for a long time. I never was UO rich. I think I'm probably sitting at the most I ever had was maybe like 130 million gold, and that was only because I was able to take advantage of the saltpeter crisis of 348, which is a funny story. But anyway, yeah, that's all I had. So I was never super wealthy, but there are some super wealthy UO players out there who are very much willing to assist. So yeah, get connected with the community.
Okay, that's some sound advice. That's some really good sound advice. So, let's jump into New Legacy. I just have a couple questions, and then we're going to start getting into some of the questions that you guys have. So, get those questions ready for us so that we can get them in there. So, is there anything exciting to look forward to with the future of New Legacy?
Oh wow, what an interesting question! It's so funny you should. Yes, there is some really exciting stuff happening with New Legacy. So we released our first update to New Legacy a short while ago, and that was some great stuff. And we've got another one coming down the pike. That is going to be on April 15th. Nick Parallax has been hard at work implementing some really exciting events that are going to go on New Legacy. It is going to explore the primary antagonist, and I got to be careful how much I tell. He showcased it to the team the other day, and I know he's probably like, oh gosh, how much is he going to say? It's going to introduce some familiar faces in a new way. I'll say that much. It will bring you back down to Blackthorn's dungeon, which is really exciting. I know that dungeon has been offline on production for quite a while, but Nick did an incredible job repurposing it for this next publish for New Legacy. There's going to be a huge event down there with a lot of big baddies to fight and a lot of sweet rewards to get. So you can continue to build your legacy. I especially love Blackthorn's dungeon. I think that's probably one of my favorite dungeons. I'm a little partial because I did build it, but that's going to be really exciting. And then, as folks have noticed, we have introduced some characters recently and some videos on the YouTube channel, thanks to Serena's excellent voiceover skills and her Japanese language prowess,
Oh, thank you.
that are shepherding in the next new legacy shard that we're going to be launching. So I'm happy to report that along with our next new legacy publish, we will be opening a new legacy shard in Japan. So we recognize that having to connect across the world to a server for our Japanese players is a challenge. So we're going to open up a new legacy shard in Japan so that they can have some better performance. And thanks to both Fenico and Ryoko, they've been our ambassadors of new legacy, and hopefully they'll enjoy the adventures those two characters go on. I know it's fun. Serena and I were chatting about this. It's fun to see the reaction, like, of the different art styles. Like, yes, it is very much an anime style, but we want to make the game as appealing to as many people as possible, and we really love our Japanese player base, so we want to bring them along for the ride on New Legacy as well. And Fenico and Ryoko are going to be the ones to do that, so I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it was a lot of fun to do. I had a great time, and yeah, really excited to get right into more adventures with those two because they're fun.
Absolutely. And I have been practicing my Japanese, as you know. Um,
Yes.
I can say uh, um, pretty much one phrase that I think is really just all I would need were I ever to go to Japan, and that is, I ate a hot dog. And if the Japanese audience will allow me, hot dog o tabimashita.
素晴らしいです。
And then what's the
oh,
sometimes it's then, yeah, that's excuse me, right?
すみません。はい。
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, yep, yep. So yeah, so we I know a lot of people have been kind of questioning the whole, Ryoko and Fenico. So it's great to have that out there. So especially if anybody has any other questions, they can kind of take a look here and they'll know exactly what's going on with those two. All right. So we've got a couple questions that have come in. Um, Oh, okay. Just one moment, DM Weaver, and we'll get into that in a moment. We've got some questions. I want to take it in order so that we're not like we want to do it in order. Let's do this right. So one of the questions that we have, gaining skills from fighting creatures with my pets is a lot of fun, and this is from Violence in Video Games. So really interesting name. Are there any plans to bring specifically taming skill gains like this to the production servers?
They're talking about from New Legacy, I would assume.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the question that's come up a lot. Like, how much are we going to port from New Legacy over to production? So a lot of the content that we've implemented on New Legacy was done so in a way that would allow that port. Realistically, it's going to be a balance check. Nick and I were chatting about this the other day, and you know, for some of the core mechanic changes, we really have to analyze and determine whether or not it's going to fit, because sometimes it's kind of a square peg round hole situation. But for some of the stuff that's layered on top, that'll be an easier transition. But we do plan to uh, port some of the features and changes that we made on New Legacy over to production. I don't have an exhaustive or specific list at the moment, but that's most likely going to come after the conclusion of season one.
Okay. Okay, great. Great. Let's see another one that we have. One of the requests, not really a question, but a request. It was very simply from Ember Fox was hot air balloons. That was all that was said. Just hot
Just
air
hot air.
balloons. Hot air
Goodness.
balloons.
No comment.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay. What's another
Although,
one?
wait, I
Hmm.
will say this. I will say this. For anybody who is listening and watching, whoever played Super Mario Brothers 2, if you go on to the ice level, I forget which world it is, but as you're pulling up the turnips from the ground, there's one point where you pull up the turnip and your character goes inside of a spaceship. I don't know what it was about that when I
Yes.
was a kid, but that was like a core memory for me. And I was joking with Nick about this a couple of weeks ago, months ago, whatever it was, and I was like, "Spaceships?" Question mark. But
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. It's some. I'm. If I butcher your name, I do apologize. I think this is pork chops. Na- you know what? I'm just gonna go with pork
pork chop
chops.
snap slaw.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with that. They were wondered if you were ever introduced to the UO theme flash videos.
Yes. Oh gosh, yeah. That was another core memory. So I was a big fan of PK Ghost from back in the day. Those videos were my favorite. That kind of was that went hand in hand. I mean, when I say that I was completely immersed in UO from like middle school to the middle of high school, it was all I cared about, all I wanted to do all the time. And one of the things that I used to get in trouble for was we had just gotten the internet at my middle school, and I would there. I mean, you could go on any website back then. There was no such thing as restrictions, and I would constantly look at all of the UO fan art, and those flash videos where I was constantly getting yelled at by the librarian not to look at that stuff in the library. I remember bidding on some, it wasn't eBay, it was like another website. I was trying to get some sword, like a silver sword of vanquishing or something like that. Um, and I missed out on the auction and I was really upset because I didn't
Oh,
have it.
aw. By the way, they corrected us. Their name is pork chops and applesauce. So yes,
Oh, pork chops and
pork
applesauce. Yeah, pork
pork
chops and
chops and
applesauce.
applesauce.
Yeah,
I get it now. I see it now. I
pork
see it
chop.
now.
Yeah, over here, nap slaws. Been a long day.
We got some agreements on the spaceships, so they like the idea. Then let's see. We've got some questions about DM Wyvern. I said I'd get to you. It says, can you tell us a little bit more about Ryoko or Feneko?
I
Uh,
guess you're gonna have to watch and wait and see, right?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, I don't want to I don't think we should give too much away because then it'll ruin all the surprises that we have about Feneko and Ryoko. I mean, Feneko's pretty easy. Hi, I'm Feneko. So that answers part of the question, but Ryoko, you're just gonna have to subscribe, hit that button, do all that good stuff so that you see what goes on, right? Um, let's see here. Lots of questions have come in, so I'm trying to catch
Fire
up
away.
on all of them. Um, let's see. A lot of people also remember those flash videos. Um, lots of love for New Legacy. Lots of love for New Legacy. New Legacy. I have to admit, one of the favorite things I loved about New Legacy is that taming is so much easier on New Legacy. I love that so much. And I know I'm not alone. Let's see. As a Feluca inhabitant, they wanted to know if there will be events active on both facets at the same time.
So traditionally, our treasures events are on both facets. It's a piece of feedback that we hear a lot, like Tramverse fell and all that kind of stuff, and something we've talked about with the team in our future event design. We want to embrace both facets as much as we can. We also want to embrace PvP as much as we can and see where there's opportunities for us to create content that allows more structured PvP, but at the same time is what the PvP community wants, which is also sometimes hard to zhuzh out. I remember doing Vice and Virtue development, however many years ago that was at this point, and there's a lot of competing interests, right? Like it's that's the nature of PvP. So we're not against it, but it's something that we have to look at and see where we can best make an impact as opposed to just, you know, stuff for the sake of stuff. So
Okay. Okay. Um, let's see here. I don't know. if this can be an answered question, but Doge UO asked, "Will there be an Easter event this year?"
We don't have anything specifically planned for Easter. As far as our like overall like Earth to Britannia event kind of crossover, we try to make it less specific to the Earth holidays as we can. I know we do Halloween, we do fall, and we do the holidays around December, like the winter theme stuff. Part of that is because it's we have a global audience and sometimes they don't translate well. But also, what happens is the schedule becomes really problematic to try to hit all of those different holidays because it's like I don't know who came up with the holiday dates 1,000 years ago, but it seems like for a while we have none, and then there's 15 back to back to back. So it's like we would essentially be doing holiday content nonstop, and there are some bigger projects that we want and need to focus on. So nothing this year, but we do have our New Legacy event coming up for New Legacy, and then there is also a production publish scheduled for the summertime, which will include some event components as well as some new mounts coming down the pike for that one as well.
Yeah, really exciting. Um, all right. Another one that we got asked: Are we ever going to bring back Bane dragons? This is from Blue Kitties 123.
Bane dragons. Probably not bring them back, but make new, cooler dragons.
Ooh, okay.
We have a very talented artist in Jim. You guys probably know him by Fark. He's been on the team at this point for two, 14 years, give or take, something like that. Yeah, he started very shortly after I joined the team. So he is an incredible 3D modeler and he brings to life all of the crazy ideas that we have. If you guys played the latest event on production, you saw his absolute nightmare fuel. I call them the scary meatballs, but there's more of those coming. And I can tell you that when we were doing the art review, it made me like uncomfortable to my core. So he did an exceptional job with them. And he is busy at work putting together some really cool mounts. We're going to have some new horsey types. I won't tell you specifically which kind, but it's going to be a sweet looking new horse. We do have a new, but also familiar winged creature coming out. I'll let you guys try to guess which one that is. Um, so he's full steam ahead on a number of different creatures. So as far as the inherent stats to it, I mean, we have a lot more flexibility with that, but what we do want to do is provide some new aesthetic options while also not, having to rely on stuff that we've used before.
Okay. Okay. And then DM Wyvern wanted to know how many ARC events can we expect for the first season of New Legacy? We know what we have coming in April. Will we have another one around the end of summer or fall before the Shattering?
Very good question. So yeah, we do have the newest one coming out. It's called Forsaken Bloodline, and you'll be learning more about that in the coming weeks as we lead up to the launch here in April. And then after that, the next live event or event arc really, I kind of use those terms interchangeable. Basically, events that we as the dev team do as opposed to EM events will be specifically related to the Shattering, right? I mean, you know that the world's going to end, but you don't know how yet, and you're going to play through it.
Okay. And then Ember Fox asks, can we have mimics? They said, I want to be trolling through a dungeon, go to lock, pick a chest, and suddenly get eaten.
It is something that Jim has tinkered with. If we can find a spot for it, I mean, this came up. Want to say one of the conversations we were having. Somebody asked about like rogues and dungeon thieves and all that kind of stuff. All that content has a very special place in my heart because it's some of the most exciting time that I ever had in UO as a player. Was when we had the Junar invasion intrinsic, and I was a thief and I was stealing everybody's silver weapons. And my shtick was that I would Um, go up to people and be like, "Help, help, I'm overloaded. Please cast strength on me. I'm just a poor, weak whatever." And they'd be like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And the moment I would set my last target on their silver, Warhammer Vanquishing or whatever it was. And the moment they would unequip it, I would steal it and then I would run, try to hide under a tree, but a lot of times you couldn't do that unless you broke line of sight. And then the devs at the time put in a teleporter that teleported you from uh, the corner of Trinsic up by the North Trinsic Bank to the other side of the wall. It was some wall cracks, and I forget what the password it was. I'll have to think about that one. It was the name of some character that was involved in the arc at the time. But then I would teleport through, and it basically had the same functionality as if you were a using like a teleport ring, and why everybody wants teleport rings. And then I would hide, and then they couldn't find me. And I had a buddy who would then take whatever it was I stole, and even if I got killed, then I would keep the item. So ton of fight. The problem with that was it was a ton of fun for me, but from the people I was stealing from, they would get really, really mad. So it definitely drives down user satisfaction. Um, you can go back and listen to some of the GDC postmortems about that in the very early days. Raf Koster talks about it, that and PvP and things like that, or PKs really. But anyway, very much close to my heart. It's just a matter of how we can best implement that play style without alienating everybody else. So we've got some ideas kicking around. It comes up pretty frequently. I don't know that we're at the stage of putting pen to paper, as it were, but we're getting closer every time we chat.
Awesome. All right. Uh, Ronan Law wanted to know about factions and PvP and doing guild battles, wanting to know if they can go back to like blue versus red, if that's something that the team is looking into.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that right now. It's all within the context of EVV. So the the mechanics of it get challenging when and why we can theme VVV and kind of enhance it in ways like we have that ability. To throw out the whole underlying system, we wouldn't do, because one of the things that we had to do with VVV was fix some of the aggression mapping that happened. So it's like, okay, let's just say, for example, that Fenico and I are fighting each other, and I'm in a guild and she's in a guild. And then somebody comes along and is a non-aggressive but participant. And that's where the whole VVV participant comes into. Um, for anybody who's a game design nerd, if you want to go hear a really good talk on it, there's a GDC talk from the folks over at Eve Online, how quickly these webs of aggression can become problematic. But anyway, so we can theme VVV. We can definitely look in the future to providing more tools with it and things like that. But the underlying mechanics of it have to stay the same. But you can fight right now, and you can do guild versus guild. You can do VVV even if you don't want to do it. So that stuff still exists.
Okay. Okay. Um, we have some.
Oh, I see. Oh, hold on. I need to answer this question because it's very important and it's likely very divisive. Pineapple on pizza insights from the devs at Ultima Online from DM Wyvern. I think pizza, much like game design, is a reflection of your personality, and you should have whatever pizza makes you happy. I, for one, enjoy pineapple on pizza, but then again, I'll eat just about anything on pizza because I eat far too much of it, much to the chagrin of cardiologists.
Okay. I would agree. Whatever makes you happy, right?
Yeah.
And I notice we have some people from Japan joining us. So ohayo gozaimasu. Welcome, welcome. So next we have this is a question from Crispy on Discord that was sent over to us. We know the dev team is looking at design and systems to move to production from New Legacy. What systems or content does the team want to remain on New Legacy, if any?
What's up, Crispy? I met Crispy the other night when we did a podcast at Wyvern's Tower.
Oh,
Yeah. So the underlying, we were just chatting about this the other day about kind of what season two is going to look like. The underlying primary narrative stuff and kind of the underlying skill progression and stuff like that. And again, this is not set in stone. This is just us chatting, but will likely remain the same just because of we don't want to go redesign the whole thing. We don't have the resources from that. Um, what the world looks like in season two, what fundamental rules we change. We have some ideas. Um, we've got some interesting ideas, I will say, that I'm not ready to talk about publicly yet. But um, yeah, the fundamental stuff we don't want to redesign, but we do have the opportunity to kind of futz about with the nuts and bolts and see where we would go. We definitely, I was talking with Nick about this. We definitely want to have some additional narratives to explore whatever the fictional basis is for season two. So you'll have to wait and see. Come check it out and play it, and you'll certainly know then.
yes. And don't forget to, sign up for all that wonderful stuff that we have going on so that you don't miss out on all that news cuz that's important. Alrighty. Dan wants to know if there will be any booster packs in the future, and if there will be an option to the store to purchase more vet reward choices.
So as far as booster packs, I'm gonna look at that in like the context of um, high seas, the amount of content that went into that. So probably not in one fell swoop, because what happens if we do that, like we can do that certainly, then that means there's not going to be anything on production for a while. We kind of saw that with New Legacy. We tried to make it easier to do back end events, or the setup for it for like TOTs while we were doing New Legacy content, or New Legacy development rather. But we still have to mine the live shards, regardless of how easy the tools of implementation are. Like there's still a live service to mine, and that just takes time and it takes attention that we have to be appreciative of. So, something like a high seas level booster, no, not likely. Just because we don't want to take that much time and attention away from what we're doing on production. Right now, we're kind of in a back and forth between production and New Legacy, and that is kind of where we want to keep it for the time being, so that we're allowing players an opportunity to play on production and then an opportunity to play on New Legacy, because we do have lots of players um, who like to play both. You'll probably also notice some fictional congruities between production and New Legacy where the story is intertwining with each other, and there are elements where we're blending the fictional lines. So that's been really exciting to tell those stories and kind of see how that has progressed. And that's what we're going to stick with, at least for the near term. Like I said, we are a very dedicated and scrappy team, but at the end of the day, we're people too, and burnout in this business is a real thing. Um,
Hmm.
you definitely, anybody who has ever embarked in any kind of creative endeavor, sometimes you just have to unplug a little bit and allow things to recharge. So we have to be realistic and honest about what our bandwidth is, and we've done that because um, you know pretty much all this gray hair over here was probably from uh, BVV. Over here was the treasure map revamp. We want to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Looking to see if there are any other questions that might have come in. While some of you I know are drumming up some amazing questions, let's ask. I've got a couple more questions I can ask. If you could add one fantastical feature to the game without any limitations, what would that be?
One fantastical feature.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. There is one thing that I have dreamt of. If anybody has ever seen the movie with Scarlett Johansson where she eats all that like mind-bending drugs, what is it called? Somebody in chat will tell us. But basically she becomes like a superhuman, and she eventually transcends. Can't believe, like, now that I'm saying it out loud, it sounds crazier than it was on the movie. But basically, she transcends reality and like becomes one with matter, I guess, and eventually can like she eventually becomes a USB stick. But anyway, I always dreamed like I wish that we could just like plug that level of yeah, Lucy, that's it. That
Yeah.
level of sentient AI, whatever the hell you want to call it, into the UO code base, and I could just like Thanos snap my fingers and fix every single bug and every single crazy thing just like that. But obviously we can't, so we're stuck with that. As far as other fantastical stuff, I don't know. We put a lot of I've been really fortunate to have put a lot of fantastical stuff in the game over the years. So, but fortunately, we're not out of ideas.
Definitely not. Um, what was it like for the dev team to watch day one activity on the new Legacy Shard?
Oh gosh, I think I had more fun watching Nick, to be honest, because that was he put a lot of hours and a lot of time into the narrative events and the quests, and I talked about chatting with the game dev students at George Mason back in the day. And what I always used to tell them is that when you spend that much time working on something, particularly a creative endeavor like that, and it's like watching your kindergartner go off to school on the first day. Like they're happy, they're excited about what's ahead. You've spent your entire life with them at that point, shaping their personality and trying to teach them the right thing to do and prevent them from doing the wrong thing. And they go to school that day and they come back and they're like completely beaten down by the realities of life and whatever happened at school, but there's still that like childhood sense of wonder and innocence that kind of keeps you going. And that's like the best way I can describe when you make something like a video game, or I'm sure that people who create any kind of thing for public consumption, from a creative perspective, can relate. But that's a lot what it was like. It was like watching our kindergartner go off to school for the first day. Fortunately, it was very well received, for the folks who played it. I think that there were some preconceptions about what it should be versus what we said it was going to be. I felt like we were pretty clear about that from the beginning, but a lot of people have kind of tried to equate it to a classic shard, and it's not a classic shard. Obviously, we tried to rekindle that classic experience, um, and simplify a lot of things to make the entry into the game world a little bit more gentle. But we can't just snap our fingers, unfortunately, like Thanos, and bring back a classic shard. But watching people kind of get that childhood sense of excitement out of what they experienced at this point 20 plus years ago was really, really amazing to watch. It's also a little nerve wracking too, because everything's all well and good until players get their hands on it and they start doing things where you're like, oh God, we didn't think of that. Oh gosh, make them stop. Um, um, uh, so
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it was. I know it was definitely exciting seeing seeing everybody kind of jump into New Legacy. It was really exciting. So, um, Justin asked, this is probably a silly question, but is there any plan for a non-emulator, the UO, if the UO Classic, is the web client that is available, but non-emulator Mac version of UO?
Non-emulator, like an officially released Mac client? Is that
Yeah,
what they're asking
I
for?
think that's what they're asking is non-web based version.
No, we don't have any plans to do that. We do have plans, however, to upgrade the classic client. We said we were going to do that with the when we released New Legacy, and then we were able to build a great relationship with the guys who built the classic UO web client. So we will be upgrading. Steven, our engineer, has been doing a tremendous amount of back-end work to do that, to upgrade the classic client's renderer so that it's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. And that is something we are definitely, that's on our roadmap for this year. So you can look forward to that sometime in the future. We don't have a solid date on it. For anybody who's a programming nerd out there, just maybe just give a little something up for Bleak, because he's in it right now and he's doing it, but it's a lot of work to upgrade some of our back end systems for getting that goal accomplished. But he is very determined, and he is an incredibly skilled engineer, and I have no doubt that he will accomplish it.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get some like, claps in the chat for Steven on that one. So two requests. One from DM Wyvern, flying carpets, and Amber Witch says flying brooms. That's what they would like
Flying
to see.
carpets we've talked about. The only way that we could make that work is you'd have to sit on a stool or a box, or basically. So if anybody wants to go and look at it in game, go grab your avatar and get on a horse. And you will notice that if you point your avatar southeast, so basically point them down, you will notice that there is a horse-shaped cutout on your avatar. So that is the riding art for the avatar, full stop. So there's always going to be a horse-shaped cutout in front of you. And you'll probably notice that on any mount that you get on. Jim does a really good job of making it look pretty good, despite the fact that it is always a horse-shaped cutout. But if we were going to do flying carpets, that's the caveat, is you would have to be seated on some type of thing, a barrel, a crate. What else? A vacuum? No, that wouldn't make thematic sense. I did play a boatload of Aladdin when I was a kid on Sega Genesis, and there was a magic carpet ride board on that game that was infuriating.
Yeah.
So I do have PTSD when it comes to magic carpets. But as far as brooms, the same issue is present with the brooms, because you'd have this big cutout. But I'll talk to Jim about it and see what we can do.
Ooh, exciting. Um, will they ever see skills like forensic, item ID, taste ID, cooking? Are those ever going to be explored, implemented a little bit more, or anything like that?
Let's see here, forensics. So I guess in terms of like revitalizing them,
Mhm.
we've talked about it. It's one of those things. It's like we have to evaluate everything. Like I've said, we do, for kind of what the return on that is going to be. So the best way that we have done that in the past is added as accessory skills to some of the fictional elements that happen in game during the events. So forensic ID and item ID have been used for various quest items and clue items to kind of tell the story and find out interesting things about the world in the context of the event that you might not otherwise know. As far as cooking, so this is one where this is, if I have to say as a designer, one of the most challenging things is how do you implement virtual cooking, right? Because if you make a cooking system where the resulting item only gives you like some kind of buff, right? So take, for example, fish pies, right? Fish pies are essentially just a reskinned alchemy, which we already have. So we don't want to do more of that. So then the alternative is, well, we introduce a stat similar to like hunger, where if you're well fed, then having food in your belly would make you less hungry and give you some type of passive benefit. And we talked about that. I think we teased it at some point for New Legacy, but it just we never got to it. So I could see that where like you could suffer some type of like your hit point regen would never go below, maybe it could drop below 0, but basically if you're well fed, you get a buff to your hit point regeneration um, based on how hungry you are. We looked at one of the stretch goals with the farming system on New Legacy, which depending on how much is on the plate for season 2, I'd love to expand. That was something that I built for New Legacy in an attempt to revitalize and make it easier to add plants to the gardening system that we have on production, because that's really hard. So the idea was that you can build your farm and you can grow different ingredients, and those ingredients would have a quality associated with them. And then based on the quality of the ingredients, you could create better food. Kind of like if you've ever been to, say, let me think, what does the chat think? What is the worst fast food restaurant ever?
Oh,
Like that's the low quality ingredient one, right? But then say you grow some really quality ingredients, like you've got the best head of cabbage and you've got the absolute best tomatoes and you have reared the most succulent cattle, then you could make like an epic cheeseburger, right? That's the idea. And then it becomes a question of like, well, then what do you do with the epic cheeseburger? Is it something you just display in your house? And then I started thinking like, is there such a way where you can have a certain amount of really high-end food to have like a really high-end banquet? Maybe only certain characters will show up if you bring like the really good cocktails out and the really high-end past hors d'oeuvres. Like there's other games that have, done different implementations of it, and it just, your creativity starts to go. Dojuo says KFC is the worst. Um, it gives me a lot of heartburn. Although I did recently visit Australia, and I think if you ask any Australian, they will agree that KFC is the best takeout. At least that's what they told me. And I will say that KFC in Australia was way better than in the United States. But anyway, so cooking can be a lot of things. There's a lot of creativity there. That was probably a really long-winded answer for those, but just to kind of give you an insight to how I've thought about that problem in the past. I'd love to do more with cooking. Let's just see what happens.
awesome. Awesome.
No
Okay.
one goes to McDonald's for quality.
I know.
All the great Burger King. So goodness.
I know, I know. I was watching kind of that and chuckling to myself, and I have to admit, KFC just nope. We've got KFC and I have beef, so. I mean, how can you go to a KFC and them tell you we don't have chicken? What? Just crazy to me. All right. DM Wyvern says not many folks have tried the Dungeon Outpost PvP system on New Legacy yet. It is very fun. It is. We got a chance to play when we were testing it out, and I thought it was a blast. And you got to see my PvP prowess because I'm just such an amazing PvPer. He says it's very fun. Are there any plans to expand on it in the future?
Yeah, we do have it's always a matter of like, here's our big idea and we have to scope it effectively. But we did have the design written up for an expansion of PvP and a bigger kind of faction-esque large scale PvP battle on New Legacy. That unfortunately we had to, not implement at as we move closer to launch, but we do have that on the back burner. We'll see what happens for season 2. One of the great things about New Legacy and why this project was so appealing to us is that it gave us the ability to kind of push the limits on what we could do without having to be super restricted by the current state of the production shards. That is a constant design challenge. And, we don't want to do something as disruptive on production as, say, like completely redo the item stats, right? Like we don't want to do that. But on New Legacy, we can. So it gives us a little bit more flexibility to be more creative and more experimental. So look forward to what'll happen with season 2. There is a question that came through. I want to address it real quick. So there's a lot of questions about where was it? Where is it? Asking about bots, cheats, and all that kind of stuff. So here's the deal with all that. We're never going to talk publicly about what our actions are. We know what the issues are. We hear you guys. We agree with it. We want to create as fair a playing field as possible when it comes to the game world. And, don't take our lack of talking about it publicly as an indication that we don't care or that we're not doing anything about it. It's just that we're not going to talk about it publicly because we don't want the folks who are taking advantage of what they ought not to be taking advantage of to know what our next move is. So it's something that we know and we take seriously. And I see it's come up a couple times, so I don't want you guys to think we're dodging the question or anything. But it's like I said, not something we're going to talk about publicly. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I know that's a question that gets asked on the live streams quite often, and I basically say the same thing. It's just, look, we can't really discuss that, and it's the same thing about when you submit a bug report. I mean, we're not going to relay information every step of the way either. We take everything that you guys give to us very seriously. We're not just throwing it out the window. So do understand that, all that stuff when it gets relayed back, it's important to us.
Yeah.
Um, so
If you ever watched the old school TV show, one of my other favorite TV shows was The West Wing. In season
yes.
1, or season 2, I think it is. I forget what it is, but basically, Ron Butterfield, and I always remember his name because it's Butterfield, was the head of the president's Secret Service detail,
Mhm.
and he always says the Secret Service doesn't comment on procedure, and that's basically what we're taking. We don't comment on procedures.
Yeah.
We're gonna go Ron Butterfield on it.
Okay. So we have Origin Anixia says huge decorator here. Same. Will we ever be able to craft wallpaper?
Wallpaper. So we've talked about it. Basically, the challenge there is whatever the wallpaper ends up being, if it is the same size as the wall tile, you're going to have a corner of it stick through the second floor of your house. If anybody, as a decorator, you're well aware that certain items are too tall and they stick through the floor because there's a height limit on that. So if we were to literally make a wallpaper that sat on the tile, basically a wallpaper is a stretched out painting. If that covers the entirety of it, it's going to stick through the second floor. So that's kind of why we haven't been super keen to do it because it doesn't look good on the second floor. Yeah, it's tough. That's a tough one. Now, if there are certain types of walls that you'd like beyond the, forget how many there are off the top of my head, but there's quite a few at this point. We're happy to take that suggestion and we could see about adding those in a future publish for sure.
Wonderful. See that, Origin? Just send in those ideas. Send those in. Okay. Stormson says, any chance of the endless journey restrictions? Those ever going to be changed?
Not right now, no.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and you're welcome, Origin. And then DM Wyvern asks, what is one skill that has never existed in UO that you'd want to see the team implement one day?
One skill that has never existed in UO. It's a good question.
I can't think of any off the top of my head that UO really doesn't have.
I mean, you could, like, you can get into all kinds of like combination things, right? Like, we used to play, the name of that tabletop game, Savage Worlds. The team used to play Savage Worlds at lunchtime when we were still in the office, and the character that I had was a mage. And in that tabletop system, you had to pick like what flavor of mage you wanted to be. So I picked ice, and allegedly, my character was responsible for destroying an entire city block and murdering, allegedly, um, countless innocent people in this alleged accident. Um, so I always thought it would be really cool to have different flavors of magic. I've always been a big, usually one of the first characters I make. I usually make an archer, and I usually make to do the sneaky kind of shoot at things character. The second one I make is usually the mage, and then the third one I make is the big like break stuff character. So definitely different flavors of magery.
Okay. Okay. Uh, someone
Oh, Ember
suggested
Fox said she wants to get in the water.
yes, swimming.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Let me check some other. Here we go. Any plans of adding wrestling-based weapons like brass knuckles, kung fu?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that as well, and it's always like, well, once you had a wrestling type weapon, are you still wrestling?
That's true.
You know, um, we have weapons are divided into now forward facing, it's fencing and swordsmanship and mace fighting and stuff, but um, they've always been referred to as slashing, uh, bashing, and slashing, bashing, and piercing for fencing. So it's like, is a brass knuckle a bashing weapon? Good. Um, but interesting idea. Um,
I, I
never know.
I see why they're asking though. They just want to start their own mafia. That's just it. I see what you're doing. Any plans for an in-person get-together for the 30th anniversary? That's still a
I
ways away.
Yeah, I mean it'll be here before you know it, right? But
Mm.
I really hope so. I really hope so. Um, the last I for anybody who has had the opportunity to come to the past meetups and stuff like that, they're always a ton of fun. It's great to put names and faces together, um, and it's always fun too because sometimes some of the folks who are the most passionate on the forums and things like that are always the sweetest in real life. So I've always enjoyed those, and um, I really hope so. We'll try to make it happen.
Definitely. I think that'd be a blast. I think
Yeah,
that'd be a
we
lot
put
of
a
fun.
lot of that stuff on hold because of COVID, but obviously that's not a concern these days. So I think that you'll start to see more of those in-person meetups, just in general. You know, as various things get to their various anniversaries and things. So we'll try to make it happen.
Definitely. All right, we have a question from Zeke. Do you plan on having another custom castle contest? And if there is one, could there be another color granite?
So let's see. As far as a custom castle contest, potentially we could do one um, towards the end of the year. There are some engineering resources that have to go into that. Basically, Stephen has to take whatever ends up being the number one, two, and three, or however many choose styles, and then implement those into the client. And our focus with his time is getting the client upgrade. So it depends on that. Beyond that, though, as far as what was the other? Oh, different color granites. You mean like just in general different color granites beyond the like hued ore colored granites? Is that what you're asking about?
I would I
I
would
would,
I
yeah,
would think that's what they're probably wondering.
yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. We like different colors. We're probably due to create some new colors. So, um, creating new colors in UO is a labor of love. So, um, it takes some time, but yeah, potentially.
So you're saying hot pink is an option.
Oh God. Somebody that had a hot car the other day. And on top of their hot pink car, they had a little miniature version of their hot pink car. And I was like, okay.
Okay. Doge asked, is there any way that there could be like an NPC weaver on the focus circles with the servers that don't have somebody always there?
No, that has come up a couple different times, and I think the way we look at it is that that's, that's the way it works right now, and you need to get your spell weaving buds to come and help you get up to a six, and I don't see us changing that,
Yeah.
at least not at the moment. No.
Okay. Um, question if we're ever going to see lost creatures like seahorses or mushroom people?
The mushroom people, yeah, this now you're gonna tickle my 1990s kid Nintendo obsession. Uh, I talked about this the other day, like, the and Nick and I are roughly, well, Nick, Steven, I mean, for the most part, we all are. But Nick and I had a very similar childhood in terms of like our exposure to video games. And we constantly nerd out on all things like Nintendo and Super Mario Brothers. So, I mean, mushroom people. I mean, basically, there's already an established mushroom people in as far as like Earth people are concerned in the Toadstool Kingdom. So I wouldn't want to just blatantly rip off like Toad. That would not be appropriate nor legal.
Right.
But we could always look at new creatures and things like that. It's like, where would the mushroom people of UO live? I almost feel like you'd have to like shrink down to like in to get inside their world. Like I wouldn't imagine mushroom people in UO would be like the same size as humans. They'd be mushroom sized. And you'd have to have some type of means by which you get inside their kingdom. So whether it be like a potion or a spell, spores. Nick loves mushrooms too. He did a whole bunch of mushroom stuff. Um, anyway, yeah. So obviously, you can see there's some. It gets the gears turning, which is always a good thing. Um, and then, well, the other question about the seahorses. So the last time they tried to do seahorses, there were serious clipping issues once they got the creature onto the water. Um, we do have the ability to put stuff on the water, like we did the pumpkin rowboat and we did the little rowboat, and then obviously the big ships. But seahorses. The problem is if you were on a seahorse, you wouldn't be able to do anything while you're on the seahorses. So you wouldn't be able to fish, you wouldn't be able to shoot stuff, because it would basically be the same as driving a ship. So then, like, it really is just like a miniature version of the rowboat. Now, what we could do, but we'll have to see. I don't want to get too down the whirlpool, but
Hmm. Okay. Uh, DM Wyvern says, it feels like the UO team has turned a page this year and getting out into the community in a way that we haven't seen in years. Will there be regular streams like this from the dev team?
yeah, I think it's a really good way to keep awareness of the game in everybody's mind. Like I've said, the community is our greatest asset. So anytime we have the opportunity to interface with you guys and chat, I mean, I will talk about UO until I'm blue in the face with anybody. So yeah, Ember Fox wants to ride across. Um, so, as often as we can do these and as often as I can rope the other members of the dev team to do these with me, sometimes I have to voluntold them because they're a little shy, but it ends up, I think everybody really has a lot of fun with these. Yeah, so we'll keep doing them as long as you guys want to watch them.
Awesome, awesome. Let's see. Oh, that's a long one. Oh, yeah. Uh, let's see. Okay. Um, let's see. Okay. What do you think Ultima Online continues to offer that modern MMOs can't replicate?
That's a good question. I think that, and I said this in one of the other streams that we talked about. Imitation is cheap, right? And it's really easy to take the work that somebody else has done and to just copy it. And that's not to say that we don't draw inspiration. Like I think that it's really hard to have to not let, right. Let me back up for a second. It's really hard to have the perspective of, you being inspired by all the creative works that you're in contact with, and then allowing that to be part of your design philosophy and then implementing that. Like that's different, right? Obviously, I'm inspired by my childhood of playing a lot of Nintendo games. Um, and you'll see that, and you have seen that. But I'm not blatantly, creating a platformer in UO or anything like that, where we're jumping over green pipes and you have a mushroom friend, best friend. But um, I think that when it comes to what you try to do is that MMOs are really expensive. From a development standpoint, they are really expensive to create. So there's a ton of risk that goes into creating them, and UO has the benefit of being really the first commercially successful massive one, and that you can't replicate, right? Nobody else can take that from UO, and no other game will ever take that from UO. So I think that that's the special sauce that we have, and I'll say it again. That's because of the players. That's because of the fact that the hundreds of people at this point in the game's life cycle who have worked on it have understood that. I think that's a testament to Bonnie's storied career as long as she helmed the ship. Like she knew that, she taught me that, she taught all of us that. She took it seriously, and we're still here because of it. And nobody else can take that away from us, and I don't think anybody else can really replicate that like UO can. Now that being said, I think that I'm a strong believer in the philosophy that a rising tide raises all ships. So when other developers out there push the envelope and create something truly unique and truly unprecedented, that's really exciting. And I want to see that. I want to play it. Like we're all gamers at heart, right? I don't turn the computer off at the end of the day and then never play another game. I try to get away from the computer as much as possible when I'm not, or really any video games when I'm not, but I still play them, right?
Mm-hmm.
It depends on what I'm feeling in the mood for. Depends on what the latest iteration of my boy Mario is. It depends on how much time and gray hair I want to get trying to build and lay out the perfect city in City Skylines. Um, so all of those things are gonna be exciting and great to experience, but there's only ever one UO. And it's really hard to it's better now because Nick is making all the content for the most part. At least, when he makes stuff, I get to go and experience it for the first time. But if you make the game and then you play through the game all day, it's really hard to then go experience it like in a fun way. And we used to get people love, players love dogging on us like, oh, the devs don't play UO. Like, no, literally, we play UO all day, every day. We'll take this is a good segue into a little story time. Let's take let me think for a second. The wreck of the Ararat. The wreck of the Ararat was a labor of love, and we fixed it recently because it had some issues. It sprung a leak. But I mean, I must have played through that more times than I can count between making it and then implementing it and then testing it. So like at the end of the day, like if I fire up my play character and then I go and run through the wreck of the Ararat, like there's no challenge there because I know everything because I made it, right? um One of the, I will always collect jack-o'-lanterns at Halloween time. I really enjoy doing that. I really enjoyed playing through New Legacy and playing through New Legacy, especially the narratives that Nick did. He did a phenomenal job with those. There are some moments in there where I think he really pushed the envelope of what had ever been done in UO. So that was really exciting for me to play as a player. But yeah, I realize I've kind of meandered into the weeds here a little bit, but I think that's why, all of those reasons, right? Also, too, I don't think that you have anybody as passionate as us. I'm sure every game development team says that, but I think we honestly have the best, most dedicated, passionate developers ever, and we have an incredible company behind us who believe in this project and want to keep it going for decades to come.
Absolutely. I know you kind of touched a little bit on EM events on the interview that you did with Ka. And if you haven't seen that, if you haven't read it, you should. It's a great interview. Ka's an amazing guild. Um, One of the questions is could you share one of your favorite EM events and what made it so memorable for you?
When I was in EM, let's see. Hmm. So probably oh gosh, I have to remember now. The wreck of, again, shipwrecks. I'm big into shipwrecks because of the whole scuba diving thing. We did oh gosh, I don't remember the name, but basically it was inspired by, excuse me, it was inspired by Event Horizon. I love that movie. It's some really, if you've never seen that movie, it's one of the best dark science fiction movies ever. But anyway, the whole idea is that the Poseidon's Fury, that was it. The crew of the Poseidon's Fury goes crazy and they end up murdering each other. And Bonnie let me really kind of run with it and do some exciting things with like telling that whole story. We pushed the limit on kind of what was possible from EM tools at the time. A couple hiccups along the way, like deleting people's pets, which wasn't good. That's also when I realized that players will do anything to get one over on you to try to get a reward. I had a player who came after the event. I think the reward drop was like some kind of bow or something like that. And he was like, "Oh, um, my bow, I got the drop, but then it changed back to a regular bow." And I was like, what? And then there was a way that we could check at the time to see whether or not it was. And I was like, yeah, it's definitely not. And he's like, haha, I was lying. I just wanted you to give me a new one. Which, yeah, I was like,
Oh.
okay. But yeah, that was probably the most memorable one, just because of how far we were able to push the tools. Um, Beyond that, the other one that really stands out was the conclusion of I think it was Act 3 or 4 of the Blackthorn's Awakening arc, where the EMs all were going to play as Blackthorn, and uh, he was going to cast a spell, and it was going to cleanse the shrine. And basically, I was working as a dev and an EM at the time. It was right when I started as at EA, and went through and scripted this whole ability, all these effects and everything, the shrine cleansing thing. It was really cool. And I'm doing the event now as an EM. So I'm using the tool that I made as an EM. And I had the macro set um, for, trying to think what it was, for making a gate. And for whatever reason, I didn't think that I would be able to create the gate in Ilshinar, and I had to do something with like the targeting cursor. So I used that command, and what it ended up happening was it created a gate from Ilshinar to my EM house in Green Acres. And if I think they're still out there, somebody has the keys to Dudley's house because all the players came pouring through, and I had to like first of all, like the abject panic set in because now there's all these players running around Green Acres in my house. Um, Fortunately, most of the stuff was locked down, but I forget what they were able to get. Maybe a sash or something like that. Because that was the thing. I never did EM sashes. I think I did one when I retired as being an EM, but I never wanted to just be an item dispenser, so I wouldn't do sashes, and people got pissed at me for that.
Oh.
But yeah, so I had to sheepishly call Bonnie, and I was like, Bonnie, come help me, and and she came and she got all the players and cleaned it all up. And the best thing about that was after I think I don't know if crashed the shard or what happened. I don't remember, but what ended up happening was the shard came back up, I think, and I might be misremembering the story, but basically by the time I got back to where the event was supposed to take place for this big thing that I had scripted all of these effects for, all the players were waiting patiently for me to finish the event, which was really nice.
Oh.
They're a great community over there on Chesapeake, as you know, so
Mm-hmm.
um, they were really good. But that's yeah, those are the two memorable ones.
Okay. Okay. And you're asking me too, Dan Wyvern? Wow, put me on the spot. There's one that I attended that really sticks out for me, and if you know, you know, Great Lakes. They did kind of a fun, um, almost like a Ghostbusters kind of event. And I really enjoyed that one because that one always has a special place in my heart. And then as far as any other one, uh, I would have to say the love syrup event, just because I love syrup. Yep. There was so much, and I actually researched everything on how you make syrup and everything, so I could get all the little stations and everything. So that was one of my favorites. But yeah, there was a love syrup. But yeah, those would be mine. Um, okay. Any chance of expanding the elven lore, such as expanding on Heartwood or giving the race a little bit more?
Yeah, potentially. I remember we did, oh gosh, I forget what event it was, but there was something that we did that was tangentially related to elves. Maybe, oh, I think it was the spell weaving words of power when we were doing the masteries part as part of Time of Legends. Pat Malott, who was a designer, you guys who have been playing a while certainly remember him. He did a lot of that work. And what's nice is a lot of times when we're going through all the UO code, there's comments from all the old devs about who did what. So I reached out to Pat and I was like, "Hey, where did you get the words of power from for the elf or for spell weaving?" And I want to say he was like, it was a mix of Tolkien inspired Elvish, and basically I just made them up. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be fun. We've got some interesting. We're actually working on the 28th anniversary rewards right now. That's how early in the art pipeline they're getting pumped in for this coming September, and one of them is a very Elven adjacent type thing. And then we got into thinking about additional Elven style armors and clothes and things like that. So, yeah, it's something we could certainly explore. Although I will say that if we do anything with elves, I will firmly be a proponent of introducing another race of elves to take out the Heartwood elves, because if you read my latest interview with the UOK folks, you will know that I have no love lost for the city of U, and we all know where Heartwood is. So I'm bringing a big ass axe, and it's gonna go down if it does.
Oh no. Oh my goodness. Oh, people are saying they may have to take up the token words of power there. So you might be in trouble. You might be in trouble. It might be a big battle. You'll have to get some dwarves and stuff on your side. Try and fight. Um, let's see. just checking some of the other areas. Yeah, as far as the lore and stuff of previous Ultima, there are some great resources. You can always check us as well. We have some great resources. Um, let's see here. Another question. Um, are there plans for a shard merger or a gate to another shard? Like a means to hop that doesn't, I mean, we have transfer tokens and shard shields.
Beyond, definitely not shard mergers. Like that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And the mechanism by which you can go from shard to shard is either a vet reward shard shield or a transfer token that you get from the Ultima store.
Mm-hmm. I have another question for you. What is your favorite item in the Ultima store right now?
Favorite item in the Ultima store? Probably the Potion of Glorious Fortune because I like having a leg up and it's an easy way to do that. To save a little time. I like that one a lot. And I utilize it myself when I'm playing in the treasures event because Nick did the last one and I got to actually enjoy it. A couple items from there that I wanted, and despite having the ability to pretty much, you know, we really can make whatever we want, but that's not fun and that's not fair. So, with the exception of, I think, no, I asked many times for some money from Bonnie. I don't think she ever gave me any. She said no every time. But basically, so we play. I try to play for everything that I get, or try to buy it from somebody else. But I played that. I played the last TOT that Nick did, and then beyond that, I really like the. This is from a implementation standpoint. I really like how the Arcane Outfitter turned out. We recognize that there is definitely a demand for being able to uh, trick out your character in different aesthetics, and the mechanism by which we've done that in the past is the transmog potions. We want to try and clean up that process, make it a little bit more straightforward. So, how that slots into the future with the Arcane Outfitter will be interesting to see. And then, one of our questions with the last batch of Paladin armors was, and many folks pointed it out, is it's paper doll only art. We don't have avatar assets as well. So we weren't sure if people were going to be into it or not. That was basically like gimme art that we got. Like it was like if somebody put a little bag of art into a basket of reeds and let it drift down the river, and it ended up in our hands, and we're like, oh, look at this beautiful art. What are we going to do with it? So we thought, maybe people will be interested in decking out their paper doll. And I have to shout out to our buddy McDougal over on the forums who shared the screenshots of his various pirate paper dolls. They were,
Yes.
as the Zoomers say these days, lit AF, which I that they looked good. So people seem to really respond to it. So paper doll art is very easy for us to do from a like creativity and implementation standpoint. The avatar stuff gets a little bit more challenging, but if there's specific types of or styles of armor and weapons, and we're here for you guys just as much as anything. So if you have suggestions, by all means, shoot us an email, uo@broadsword.com, comment on Facebook, on Instagram, on our various social media outlets, and one way or another, we'll get the feedback and we'll add it to the list.
Okay. So, Cookie Mom, you talked about, personal attendant. That's a great, thing to add to the list. So, there we go. Um what is one thing that you have done as a designer that you are just beaming about that you have done?
Well, there's a lot. I'd say the most. That's a good question. I really liked the 20th anniversary. Gosh. So let me back up for a second. There's a joke that we have where like as a developer, your brain operates like RAM. So once, because people are always like, how can you not have an encyclopedic knowledge of everything that is going on? Like there is a lot of stuff around over the years. So like you start to like things blend together and you get into this kind of like fever dream state where like, what was that? What did I do? And then when you go look at it, like, oh, right, right, right. And there's been times too where like I'll go digging around in the code where you're like, God, who wrote this? This is terrible. And it turns out, you actually wrote it. But as far as the event that we did with, I think it was the 20th anniversary event. That was totally a fever dream. But where you had to put all the components of the like little phylactery thing that Jim made together.
Mm.
That turned out really well because there was a lot of little components with like candles, and I was really going for this like kind of seance demonic thing. I really liked that. Originally, doing that in your house was going to spawn like a bunch of monsters, but there was too many issues. So that was really cool. I was really proud of the way that the Blackthorn's castle turned out. That was probably the big first piece of world building that I did. There are people who are way better at world building than I am in decorating, but it's something that I've been doing for a long time now. And that was the first big project that I worked on from a world building perspective. So I really liked that. And then also Blackthorn's Dungeon. What else? The Wreck of the Ararat, of course. That was really cool. I really liked that quest. Fun fact, that quest has some nods to there's some Easter eggs in there. A lot of the characters in that are based on the scuba diving community from New Jersey circa like 2010.
Initiative gets started, and what's been the most fun for Fenico doing this. So I'll let you kind of answer, that initial part, and then I'll say what the most fun is for me.
Yeah, I think a big part of it has been just, we want to talk about UO as much as possible, right? Like people always say like, oh, you guys need to advertise more and everything like that. Like this is it. This is what, advertising looks like in 2025. Um, and it's fun to do too, because we get to interact with players. They get to put some names to faces, realize that we're actual people, so don't beat us up too much. Um, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would say the most fun that I have doing this is getting to know and talk to all of you, the players, because that is honestly the bright part of my day, being able to enjoy that time with you guys and everything. And I really look forward to it every week. So definitely. Okay, is there anything that you would like to kind of add to wrap our kind of stream up a bit? Anything wise words or things to look forward to?
Oh gosh. I mean, as far as things to look forward to, definitely excuse me, New Legacy published too. I can't wait for you guys to see and play what Nick put together with that. When he showcased it, it put a smile from ear to ear for me. So I think that's going to be really a lot of fun for people to experience. And you guys definitely need to check it out. Tell your friends, and then tell those friends to tell their friends. And while you're at it, tell them to tell 10 more friends. And it'll be a lot of adventuring for sure. Beyond that, launching New Legacy in Japan is going to be huge for us. I really love that community. I have not yet been to Japan, but it's next on my list for places to go. I just love the culture, and I know a number of gotten to know a number of Japanese people here where I live, and there's a lot of them in the dive community that I'm part of, and they're just the most exceptional people in the world. I met a Japanese woman when I was in Australia, and she gave me this cute little Nemo fish that you could see on the back of my phone. So I love all that. So yeah, so I'm really excited about that community's ability to experience New Legacy. Super excited about the future for UO. Like I said, the team is incredibly talented and hardworking, incredibly passionate about making sure that this game continues to be successful. We will, as I mentioned, be upgrading the classic client to respond to that feedback. We've got some other secret plans in the works that I'm not ready to talk about just yet, but I will say that, you know, there's commitment from all parties to making sure that the game is well looked after and continues to thrive. And then as far as you know, in-game specifics, like wait till you see what Jim is cranking out. You guys are going to go nuts for it because it is absolutely unbelievable. And I think as we move through the next couple of weeks here, we'll probably tease some of that out. We were doing weekly teasers with our email blasts. We haven't yet started those back up yet this year, but we will be shortly as we get closer to launch for New Legacy Season 2 here. So make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter, Twitch, YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff so that you can. What is it you say? What's the.
Stay in the know about UO.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. I love it.
Any wise words for the players as far as just anything at all, anything that comes to mind, things that they maybe, in game, out of game, just wise words.
Well, the other cool thing is that Masana Bani has been doing some pop-up events. She's still very much around, still going incredibly strong with the EM program, and I know that is one of our most popular events. Is she does her Masana Roulette, and it's like a pop-up thing because otherwise, if we announce it beforehand, it's like absolute chaos. So keep an eye on for that. She's having a ton of fun doing it. She's got some exciting, as you might imagine, evil plans with it. So that's really cool. So my word of wisdom would be to just watch your back because you never know when she's gonna like completely just gank you and kill you because she's really good at that.
Well, there we go. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview, and I want to thank all of you out there who's watching. Maybe you're watching this now live with us, or you're watching it after. Like, follow, subscribe, all that great stuff. It really helps us out, especially with that like button. Don't be stingy with it. You got to hit that like button. And that way we're at the top of the algorithm so that when people search UO, we're right there, right at the top. Um, and again, UO.com, it's your official source for all things UO. So be sure to keep checking that out. Sign up for the newsletter, as Greg had put it, that, exciting stuff is coming your way. You don't want to miss out. So again, stay in the know about UO with that newsletter. And yeah, this was a lot of fun. Again, thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Greg, yet again for joining us tonight. Um, yeah, I hope everybody has a great day, evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. Stay safe out there, and as always, be good to each other. We'll see you again real soon. Bye.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye bye.